Good afternoon, everyone. It's still morning, apparently. Welcome back to the channel. And today I'm going to be looking at and publishing, now that redistricting is complete, my first I'm going to say official prediction or forecast for the U.S. House. Next time I'm going to do Senate and governors, but kind of want to go over some of the key states, and I'm going to do that. Now, 270 doesn't have New Hampshire up, but for right now, I'm going to call both of those for the incumbents. Even though those are both very, very competitive seats, New Hampshire seems to be a place that does split ticketing, so I could see both its incumbents holding on, despite being in seats that I would say would otherwise flip. So if we go down to, where's an actual competitor? Arizona. Scrolling in, or I guess I can't scroll in, but the independent commission turned out to not be as independent as was previously thought. And they drew a map that kind of favors the Republicans, because in a state with 9 districts, 4 are safe for the Republicans, another one is pretty likely for the GOP, and then you've got 2 more that probably lean to the Republican Party, one of which slightly leans Democratic. But in a wave election, you get to the point where all but 2 seats in Arizona are Republican. So that's a mild problem. California, I don't know what to say about it. For right now, I'm going to have Representative Ruiz hold on to his district in the 25th, but we'll see. With some of the polling I've seen of that include breakdowns of Latino versus Black voters rather than just non-white voters as a whole, it's not looking good for Democrats in terms of holding the Latino vote, and this is I believe actually a Latino plurality district, so that could be very bad for the Democrats. Moving over to LA, well, these 2 districts, if I remember correctly, so these 2 are both held by Democrats, but they're also very, very competitive. And I think in a Republican environment, they should flip. And I do believe the Republicans are going to hold on to most of their seats, because as it was, the seats they held were already reasonably competitive. And I could honestly see both of these flipping as well. But I'm going to tilt them towards the Democrats to be on the safe side. In Colorado, I'm going to have the 7th lean towards the incumbent, but it's a seat Republicans absolutely can flip. I actually believe the 8th is open, and with a partisanship that leans towards the Republicans, well, there you go. Connecticut, I'm still going to have the Republicans actually flip a seat, but it's possible Democrats hold all 5. It's possible Republicans get both competitive seats. Florida, this is a pretty easy one. Thanks to DeSantis. There is ongoing litigation, so it's possible this map changes, particularly in North Florida. So, yeah, could be very, very interesting what happens here. Let's see, what else? In Florida is interesting. Yeah, this district held by Ted Deutsch, or Dutch, this could absolutely be a flippable seat, and apparently he's not even running again, and his partisanship is already well within what I would call the competitive margin. Republicans could absolutely flip the 23rd as well, which would give the Democrats 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 seats out of 28 in Florida, which would be really bad for them. In Georgia, the only competitive seat is held down here by Bishop, and the Republicans have an interesting challenger to him. Possible flip, but I don't really see it flipping just quite yet. Illinois has a lot of interesting decisions. I decided to set it so that most incumbents are protected. Out here in the Northwest, the incumbent isn't running for re-election, and it's a year that's going to favor the opposite party, and it's not really that heavy of a Democratic lean. I really could see this flipping to the Republicans. Illinois 13, it's an open seat that doesn't lean to the Democrats all that much. In a Republican favorable environment, I could still see this going towards the GOP. Up here, the only reason I'm having this one go to the Republicans is you're going to have a primary fight between two incumbents from the Democrats. That's going to really beat them up, and the Republicans are probably going to have a little bit of an easier time flipping that than they otherwise would. There's potential elsewhere in the Chicago metro, but I don't really see it happening just yet. Iowa, well, the state's becoming more and more Republican, and I don't think the Democrats are going to have a representative there beyond next year. In Maryland, I'm going to have the Republicans flip this seat out here in the Panhandle, which it's possible it happens. So, yeah, that would be, I would even say probable, but, you have a Democratic incumbent, and I have to contend with the Democratic incumbent having some edge. And then you have 2 seats over here, which, depending on the environment, could theoretically be competitive, but I'll believe it when I see it. Michigan is an interesting one, in that the map wound up really favoring Republicans. Now, part of that's because the Democrats don't have the greatest geography. They have some people here in Grand Rapids and some people in this area, but other than that, it's just Detroit and the Detroit suburbs. So, yeah, we're going to go ahead and say that Michigan is... It'll look reasonably like this. The 3rd, 8th, and 7th might go the other way, but more than likely it'd be the 8th and 7th, because those have Democratic incumbents who might just be able to hold on. Minnesota, if this seat were open, the Minnesota 2nd, I would actually have that one flipping too, but you have a Democratic incumbent, and I tend to err on the side of the incumbent. Other than that, Michigan looks the way you'd expect. Or not Michigan, sorry, that's Minnesota. Montana, Nebraska, none of those. Whoops, interesting. Nevada is somewhat interesting. Kept it the same since the last time I did a little bit of a house look. And genuinely, I could see the Republicans flipping all of these seats, depending on how a lot of things go. And with the way things are moving in the Senate and gubernatorial elections, those races might change. I'm from where I've currently got them, but I'm going to err on the side of the incumbents and say only the most competitive, based off of pure partisanship, is going to flip. And that's the 3rd. New Hampshire, like I said, for right now, I'm going with the incumbents. New Mexico, I'm pretty much sticking with incumbents for right now, though this is one that, depending on how bad polling gets for the Democrats, the third might be on upset alert. New York, thanks to their Court of Appeals and all that, I had to refinagle the map. And for the most part, I went with incumbents. And I think the 22nd will still stay in Republican hands just because it is a favorable environment for the GOP. I do have, the incumbent's not fighting there. Actually, that could make the fourth competitive as well. The incumbent not running for re-election. But yeah, so this is a very, very interesting map. Republicans could do really well in New York, to be honest. As it is, I have them winning 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And there's an outside shot they get the 17th. There's a shot they get the 4th. That'd be 12 seats for GOP in New York, which that would be bad news for the Democrats. North Carolina don't really have anything changing. Thank goodness Madison Cawthorn lost. That would have been embarrassing for the Republican Party. Ohio, really, it's a good map for Republicans, and it's an environment that should favor them, so I really don't see any of the competitive seats flipping in Ohio. Oregon. So the 5th district. I forget the name of the person who beat Schrader in the primaries, but the person who beat Schrader is very much a progressive in a seat that is basically even on partisanship. That's a really bad idea in an environment that's already going to favor the Republican Party. I'm going to have to look at the numbers again from the primary to see who's more enthusiastic there, but oh boy. The Democrats could have just nominated, well, let's just be honest, and the 6 is open in a Republican-leaning environment. I could see the 6 going for the Republicans as well. Not sure about Oregon's 4th, but that is flippable as well. But it's the least flippable of these 3 districts. So we'll see. But for right now, I think this is not an unreasonable prediction. In Pennsylvania, I'm going to keep it where things are. I think I slightly downgraded because in the 12th, you had another progressive nominated. So that can make things a little bit more difficult, especially since it doesn't contain all of Pittsburgh. And the other problem is that Pittsburgh is very much a blue-collar steel town, and a lot of the progressives are also super socially progressive, and that doesn't sit well in a steel town in steel and coal country. But it's also a city that is very heavily Democratic, so still very likely Democrats hold on there. Elsewhere in the state, pretty reasonable, I think. Texas is interesting, but only because of the Rio Grande Valley. And it's simply because at the end of the day, you have a seat that even partisanship in a Republican environment with no incumbent, the Republicans will probably hold on there. And in the 28th, I just dropped there. In the 28th, you have a very competitive primary election where the Democrats might nominate the wrong person, but it looks like that Cuellar just barely held on. If it turns out that he lost to Cisneros, I'd probably have this seat as a flip, because I don't think Cisneros would do very well outside of the San Antonio area, which is not the majority of the population of the district. And let's also throw in the fact that the area near San Antonio is also not the Democratic part of San Antonio. It's the outskirts and the exurbs, which are a lot more Republican. The Democratic area of the district is the border area of the district and the more rural area, and those people are also more, well, conservative. Why do you think Cuellar does so well here? I mean, Cuellar is quite often called the most conservative member, Democratic member of the House, and he's pro-life and an NRA member. So, yeah, that's a weird combination for a Democrat, but hey, pretty much goes to show that the Democratic Party's kind of left him. You go to Virginia, and Virginia is kind of a weird case study right now, because Virginia only has House elections this year. There's no Senate election. We had a gubernatorial election last year. So, without a big top of the ticket, the House candidates are unusually exposed for the party that's on the receiving end of a wave, right? And that could be a problem for Jennifer Wexton, and I think it is a big problem for Abigail Spanberger, because both of those seats, I think Spanberger's 7th is a lot more likely to flip. But the 10th could also, if things fall exactly right for the Republicans, also flip. And then I think Wisconsin, basically Ron Kind's district flipping, and that's about it. And if we go back to the overview, well, let's just say that the Republicans would be crushing it here. But I think all of these districts that I have the Republicans picking up are not just reasonable flips, but I think the Republicans could probably flip even more if things go absolutely perfectly for them. So, as it would be, the GOP would have about 21 or 22 seat majority here. They'd flip about 40 seats as it is. And remember, that's not counting that they could absolutely flip both seats in New Hampshire. If you look at it, they could flip the 4th. They could flip both districts in Nevada. There's another district. There's another district. There. I think there's 1 or 2 more down in this area. That's flippable. Potential. There's one down in Florida that's potential. There's another one. There's another one. You can see what I mean here, right? So Democrats need to be careful. They need to hope for some momentum. They think they have momentum after the events in Texas and Buffalo, as well as potential Supreme Court ruling on abortion. But I think Biden is kind of really hurting them, because Biden made a comment about potentially wanting to ban 9mm handguns, which I don't think I need to tell you is, I think, the most popular type of firearm in America, period. Not just most popular rifle, which the AR platform is the most popular rifle in America. In terms of guns overall, I believe I'm correct in saying that 9mm handguns are the most popular here in this country. So basically, Biden's wanting to, if he really meant what he said, ban the two most popular firearms in America. That might be too much even for some Democrats. It also gives the Republican Party a lot of ammunition for ads saying, this isn't about safety, the Dems really are after your guns. Look at what the president said. And they can just play that on repeat. And they'll get voters. They'll drum up enthusiasm among their base. Basically, something like that has massive potential to backfire on the Democrats. So the Democrats really need to be careful, and they need to actually try to keep Biden from saying too much on any one subject. Inflation doesn't look to be going down anytime soon. The housing market looks like it's about to collapse. We might go into recession. Probably will go into recession. So the question is basically, how do the Democrats mitigate their losses? And when I talk about the Senate, it's going to be even more important there, because 24, if things haven't improved by 2024, the Democrats might have just played themselves. They were so terrified of Trump that they did everything they could to beat him in 2020. And they might have just given him even more power in 24. If things don't improve. And I'm not sure they will. But, as always, grains of salt all around. And, hey, you know what? The Democrats might be right. These issues might be just enough to motivate their base to not lose. Right now, though, polling is not indicating that. Polling is indicating that the Republicans are just as motivated as ever. Maybe more so. So, anyway, hope you enjoyed. I'll see you all next time. Take it easy. Likes, comments, subscriptions, they always do help, and I greatly appreciate them. Bye-bye.